We're in the TechCrunch studio today with James Reinhart, CEO and co-founder of ThredUP. James, welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
So your business now, ThredUP, has been around for about 2 years, and you've gone through an interesting evolution, which I think would be useful for the audience to kind of sort of hear briefly.
Yep.
So tell us just how you started the company and sort of the evolutionary steps you've taken to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so ThredUp's a peer-to-peer, originally started as a peer-to-peer clothing platform, and we started with men's and women's shirts. The idea was to capitalize on kind of the underutilized assets in everybody's closet. You know, we all have closets full of stuff we don't wear. And you know, the best way to describe it is it was a great story and not a great business. We had a very successful launch and just not enough consumers using the platform. And so we thought, you know, what we learned around the marketplace, what was a better vertical for us? And so we immediately jumped to kids. And so we tried to build a business around peer-to-peer kids clothing exchange.
So this was the second step. So what were the insights from, you know, having a platform for men and women to share tops and clothing?
Yeah.
Where you said, hey, what about this market of parents for kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it was for men and women is that we're sort of, it's not a big problem for us for the stuff that we're holding on to. You think about kind of the pain point, you keep stuff in your closet, you're like, it's sort of there, and then eventually you get rid of it. The thing about kids is that it's forced obsolescence. I mean, kids grow and you have to get rid of stuff. You just can't accumulate all that stuff. And so what we found was one of the biggest pain points in kids was you have all this stuff. In men's and women's is not quite the same. And so we tried to move into a market where we were solving a bigger consumer problem.
I see. And so when you went into step 2 of ThredUP, where it's a marketplace for parents, right, to sort of share and swap clothing of kids, and you can see how that market would be attractive to people, right? The cost of children's clothing is just ridiculous, and it's changing. So what did you learn from there? You know, what were the things you learned and sort of the challenges you guys faced in that part of the business?
I mean, it was a clear problem for consumers. You know, your average middle-class family spends $1,000 a year on kids' clothing, right? And there's really no great way to extract value from the stuff that your kids have outgrown. You end up giving it away, you give it to Goodwill, and so forth. And so we were trying to create a platform such that you could get rid of the things your kids outgrown and find a really convenient way to buy new stuff. And what we were starting to see in that business is, we had grown it to several 100,000 moms, and we had swapped millions of pieces of kids' clothing. But as a business, we weren't able to capture enough of the value that we were creating in the exchange, and so we were looking for kind of something else.
So whereas on the one hand you were providing, if you have hundreds and thousands of parents doing this, you weren't able to extract enough value to keep a sort of scalable business going.
Yeah, I mean, I think for businesses like this, that these sort of two-sided markets where you're taking sort of transaction prices, you need enormous scale. You need eBay scale to build these big businesses, and we just weren't seeing enough velocity in the marketplace to sustain the track we want to be on.
Okay, and so the insight from there is you take your next step. How do you guys make that to what you are today?
And so what we learned was that there was a little bit of friction on the selling side, right? Just we know with lots of businesses popping up these days, right? Figuring out easy ways to sell your stuff is a really important piece. And that we see emergence in e-commerce where consumers are expecting a lot more out of the e-commerce experience. So we said, well, could we do that in this kids consignment kind of world? So could we make it super easy for you as a parent to sell your stuff? And could we make it feel like you're shopping at guilt, say, when you're buying stuff? And that's where we are today, which is ThredUP, sort of the nation's biggest online consignment platform for kids.
For kids' clothing.
Yep.
And so can you share a little bit, so if consumers are watching out there and they have kids, how do they interface with ThredUP, and what can they do either as a seller or buyer?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you could go online to the site and order a bag. So it's a prepaid bag, looks yay big. It's got big green polka dots on it.
Yeah.
Got a prepaid label on it. You order it, we send it to you for free of charge. You stick all your outgrown kids' clothing in it and put it on the porch. We have a partnership. We pick that bag up, we deliver it to our warehouse, processing center, and then we pay you for all the items that are accepted in that bag.
Okay.
So we just give you, the ability to cash out via PayPal.
Okay.
And then on the buy side, it's just like shopping, on any e-commerce site. There's pictures and descriptions and images, and pick the ones you want. And
so you and your colleagues are taking the green bags, sorting them, figuring out what's, adding some judgment about what condition the items are in and what the possible value is.
Exactly.
And then pairing that up. And so how is the market responding in these initial stages?
I mean, it's been extraordinarily positive. We're now getting somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 pieces of clothing a day.
Wow.
And in our 60,000 square foot facility, processing those items and then putting them online for a really delightful buying experience. And we're pretty pleased over the progress so far.
And so if you're just focusing on sort of kids' clothing today, do you see ThredUP expanding that model to, let's say, other types of used items or used clothing items?
Yeah, I mean, I think broadly there's a tremendous opportunity for sort of certified pre-owned throughout the sort of apparel industry. And so for us, it's, how do we stay focused on kids and build a really big business there? But, as we verticalize and do other things, I think there's tremendous opportunity among this.
Staying in the universe of apparel, though.
Yeah, staying in soft goods. Anything you can put in our sort of prepaid bag, I think is the place we want to live, because I think the insight we learn from consumers is that it needs to be super simple. And so asking them to go to a post office to do any more additional work is not going to work. So you can stuff it in the bag, ThredUP will process it.
And any plans for interacting with customers on mobile, or is it pretty much just...
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of needs to have a mobile strategy, but for us, it's, we don't expect to do anything sort of groundbreaking on mobile, just create better ways for you to, buy high-quality stuff for your kids.
And any interesting, success stories from parents who maybe, obviously these aren't easy times, right?
Yeah.
And if you're making it easier for parents to, sort of as their child grows, right?
Yep.
Any interesting stories have come out of that?
I mean, what's really great about the business is that you are really helping kind of working class families solve a problem that they have. And I think, we hear day in and day out from families that say, we could never have afforded that Ralph Lauren dress, new. We could never have afforded those Gymboree overalls, new. And so what we're seeing is we're bringing, great brands to folks at better prices. And there's also this notion of recycling and being green. And I think what we hear from consumers is they feel good about that decision to kind of get rid of things, and they know it goes to a new home, because the dirty little secret is so much of that stuff ends up in a landfill.
Right. And so how much of that ties back to what kind of brand you're trying to build, right? Because the company, you've been around for a while, but it's still new.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you think about that as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is build kind of, a brand that says that ThredUP is the right thing to do. It's the right thing for your wallet. It's the right thing for the planet. It's the right kind of message to send to your kids. And so we're trying to build a holistic brand that becomes an iconic brand in American homes around smart choices as a consumer, and not just being about saving money and not just being about recycling, but saying, hey, you can create and extract a lot of value from the service.
Okay, and so final question would be is just, okay, you've taken these kind of steps. We've gone from, clothing to men and women's clothing to parents, peer-to-peer, to now this kind of certified, vetted experience, and you're thinking about other verticals within apparel.
Yeah.
What are the big, top 3 challenges as a chief executive you're thinking about, top of mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is it's an operations business, right? I mean, so we used to work in bits, and now we work in threads. And so I think there's a different sort of scale of what we're trying to do. I think it's the difference between Amazon and eBay, right, in the sense of holding inventory and not holding inventory. So I think operations is a big challenge, but we're building an extraordinary team around that. And I think the other is just it's customer acquisition and getting the word out. I mean, what we see in our market is once you try the product, people absolutely love it, right? So it's how do we induce trial and get consumers over this hump of, hey, certified pre-owned is a great thing, right? It's basically just been washed. And I think those are kind of the 2 big challenges. And the third is always just, how do you build, great iconic brands over the long term and stay true to your values and your mission and, not chase shiny objects. And so we're very heads down focused on delivering a great customer experience.
Great. Well, James, thanks for sharing the story. Congratulations on all the success. And
thanks for having me.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, James.